What's going on, everybody? Gunnar here, and I think it's about time we start tutorial season back up. And I wanted to start with my favorite fly so far of 2017, which is the Fuzz Jr. And the Fuzz Jr. is the articulating style, the big tail kicks and a big pushy head style fly, articulating style counterpart to the Jerk Jr. And it uses a unique product from Hedron Inc., the same people who make Flashaboo, which is a strung fuzzy fiber, which is a synthetic wool substitute. And that's where it gets the name from the Fuzz Jr., from the strung fuzzy fiber. And I would seriously recommend you pick some of that up and check that out, because we're going to use it. It's used in seasoned geezers, the Fuzz Jr., the Hot Fuzz, which is the articulated version, and then I have a swing version which has a wiggle tail, which is called the Swung Fuzz. So we got like 4 patterns now with this strung fuzzy fiber, and it's like my new favorite head material of all time. So go pick some of that up from Hedron. You can pick it up right at their website. But jumping into the fly, I have a size 1 Ahrex Trout Predator Series hook. Really awesome, nice thick wire, perfect kind of shank length and gap ratio, nice keel on it. And that's what we're going to be using for our base. For our tailing material, we're going to come on with barred ostrich plumes. Now these ostrich plumes are a Hareline dubbing product, if you guys can see that. Really nice length to them, super ultra wispy, and I kind of like the barred tone. And what I'm going to do, because these are so long, and this might be like a sin and another version of fly tying, but I'm going to find the length I want, which is a few inches or so. Cut that off. But I'm going to get this length, and I want this length, the tail's supposed to actually physically whip around and articulate, and we're going to have quite a bulky head to this, so you can do a pretty long tail. You don't have to be too worried about that. But I like the tail to probably be, 2.5 inches, 3 inches off the back of this hook. It's about a 3.5 inch fly right there. And I'm going to cut that. Now, instead of just tying this in and having this really wispy tail and wasting that material, I'm going to kind of taper these to the guys. This is my cut ends, my kind of like garbage pieces that I wouldn't normally use. This is hard to do with just my hands, but... And I'm just going to add those to the base. So what we're going to do is we're just going to really fill in that kind of lower section, have a nice thick clump really close to that hook bend, so we have a nice thick tail, and we're going to taper that so that our tail has this kind of own teardrop shape and movement to it. You can kind of just come in, cut that flush, hit that with a nice loose, spin this up a little bit. Nice loose. Oh man, it's been a long time, you guys, since I've done a video. This is bad. Nice loose pinch wrap. There we go. And wrap that right back to the bend. Now this material, all on its own, is super limp, which gives it absolutely phenomenal articulating movement behind the fly, because we have this nice big bulky head that's going to push a crazy amount of water. But there's a problem with that, in that it will foul ridiculous, like all the time. It'll foul like every other cast. So I'm going to come in with, you can use any kind of really stiff synthetic, but I'm going to come in with Faux Bucktail from Flymen. And the reason why is because I like that the tips are tapered really nice, and they bleed into that tail. So it's not really, you can't really see it. You don't really notice it. And that taper is really nice. And obviously this is a kind of nice little synthetic that's not going to add any drag to this tail, and I want it about an inch back. That's all you need, just to extend this, and then the fibers will hinge an inch back instead of hinging here and fouling. You don't need that many, maybe like 20 fibers. And then I'm going to have quite a bit of material waste, so I'm just going to cut those butts off. So that fiber is like 6 inches long, and now I only have like 3 inches, and that's just so it's easy to work with. I'm going to put a little taper into it just so it lays kind of naturally there. And then I'm just going to literally, sorry, I got dry mouth from drinking too much coffee. But you just kind of like push that down with your fingers around the hook shank. Hit that with a really loose wrap, and this is going to get a little sloppy, don't worry about it. the whole back tail of this hook is going to get kind of fat on you, kind of bulky on you, and we're going to hide all that with an EP Foxy brush, so don't worry about that. But really, just move that around with your fingers until you have it like kind of perfectly distributed. And then we're going to tie that all the way back, so we're using that whole kind of rear part of that hook shank to strap that down. So that's all good, durable, super tied in. And now we have this stiff kind of 1-inch section of faux bucktail keeping all of that ostrich herl, I guess ostrich plumes, aligned perfectly straight back so that this will not foul, which is awesome, which is ideal. Now I like to add some flash at this step, certainly not necessary, but it kind of adds a little bit more movement to the back here. And a product that Hedron just came out with, so the same guys who make the Strung fuzzy fiber, they came out with a new color of accent flash, and it's pure white, which is really crazy cool because it's saturated, right? It's not just ultra flashy, but it has that same kind of, I don't know, accent flash movement, which is nice and limp, and it folds it on itself pretty well. But you can add some really cool saturation to that fly. So I'm going to take like 5 or 6 strands, measure this out so that I'm basically just going to fold this in half. But what I did is I select my length, that way I know how long it is so that I can taper it. And then I'm just going to pin this right to the top and kind of fold it over a little bit on each side. But you can use holographic flash, you can use micro lateral line flash, which is probably one of my favorite materials, but this new color of accent flash is just crazy cool. So you can see we have just this absolutely horrible looking ball of thread back here. And that's cool. Like, what are you going to do about it? It's not a big deal. We're going to hide all of that with an EP sparkle brush, an EP Foxy brush, palmered at the same time. Right, same as you do on like a skinny dipper or a marabou, what I call that. I forget what I call that marabou bug, but I don't really sell it anymore. But we're going to take these 2 brushes. You can see I just have a little bit of wire kind of trimmed away at the end. You can't really see that, but I'm just going to come in and tag these right on top of that thread ball. Leave a little space back there, it's not a big deal, and run it forward. Now, basically that's the fly. We're going to build this up and then we're going to put a Strung fuzzy fiber head up here, right? And so it's fairly simple, but there's quite a lot of materials involved. But you want to save quite a bit of room up at this head because I want to make a nice thread head. There's going to be a pretty bulky thread head to this so that we can get our ostrich up there, so that we have, not ostrich, but peacock up there, so that we have 2 tones. We got a little flashy back to it. We're going to attach our real fake jungle cock eyes from Hareline, and that's, you know, that's just kind of like, I don't know, actually I think the ostrich herl is pretty important, but the hot spot eyes are really just if you like that kind of stuff. You can use tab eyes if you can find them small enough. I had a hard time finding them small enough, so I went with the fake jungle cock. But I'm going to take this brush at the same time, preen this back so that we have a nice kind of clean hackle, and then I'm just going to fill in that hook shank with an open spiral wrap. So we're going to cover quite a bit of ground here. I want one nice clean hard wrap at the back, and then we're just going to move up diagonally and fill up this hook shank. Now there's a reason why I like the EP Foxy brush over the EP Sparkle brush, or the EP Craft Fur brush, excuse me. The EP Craft Fur brush, which is used on Jerk Juniors, and it's used on Super Jerks, is a lot thinner, wispier. It builds a more elongated silhouette. And by the way, I would encourage you to count those wraps. I think it might have been six wraps. But you don't want to over bulk this. You don't want to do too many. But the EP Craft Fur brush is a lot wispier, a lot kind of longer. The core materials are a bit shorter proportion wise. And this Foxy brush, just because of the length of the fly, because of the head, because of that ostrich on the tail, it builds a better, more appropriate silhouette than if you were to come in with the EP Craft Fur brush. So there's a reason why I used one over the other. in case you were curious. But I like the EP Foxy for building up kind of thicker bodies. I use it in Sculpt Daddies, and I use it in eye candies, and I use it in, what else do I use it in? Catnips, skinny dippers. It comes into play, but I like it for a little bit shorter, bulkier silhouette leading into that nice tapered ostrich tail, right? Because we kind of doubled up those fibers so that the tail is its own individual teardrop forming into this teardrop body silhouette. So that's all good. I got that wire tied in double now, so that's good and secure. And here's the good part, the strung fuzzy fiber goodness. This head pushes so much water, and it's so bulky. The whole bug, like, I don't know how to describe it, because it just, that head, it catches every micro current with just little deflections, and every time you stop it, the whole tail just kicks off to the side. It swims like crazy. It's like a little 4-inch micro bug that's to die for. I love this little thing. It's legit. So I'm coming in with a dubbing loop. I find this fiber easiest to work with a dubbing loop. It's also incredibly durable. You know, I think I found kind of like when you stack dubbing around lead eyes and stuff, it'll kind of like, it gets slicked back after a while from being in the water, and it won't hold tight to those eyes and stuff. And we're not putting lead eyes on this bug, but you could if you fished, you know, a floating line system and you wanted a little bit of weight on here. But I quite like it weightless for my full sinking and sink tip lines. But I'm going in with some dubbing wax. I forget where I was going with that whole train of thought, but I lost it, so we're gonna keep going. But I'm gonna come in with some strung fuzzy fiber in gray, and the gray is a really cool kind of mottled color. It's got white, gray, and black tones to it, so it adds to this kind of grizzly barred tail effect, which is really nice. And I like my heads to be a little bit darker than my tails. I think it just, I don't know, adds a little bit of contrast up to the head. It makes it different and unique. Most fish heads are a little bit darker than the body, especially on top. You don't need a lot of fibers. And this comes in a 2-inch hank that's 10 inches long, so you can see how crazy long these fibers are. They won't even fit on the camera. They're super long. And so what you're gonna do is you're just gonna cut maybe like, 20 fibers. Like, you don't need a lot, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this and we're gonna cut it in half. And then we're gonna cut it in half again. And then hold up, because we're not gonna cut it in a perfect half. We're gonna cut it like 60-40, so that we build a little taper into the dubbing loop, so that the trim work at the end isn't so, it isn't so technical. You know what I'm saying? Because if you can build the taper into the dubbing loop, basically if you suck at cutting heads, the bug will still fish just fine. And so it kind of takes a little bit of the control and consistency out of your wheelhouse. So this is quartered. We did half and half. This is what's left. And we're going to cut this again, but instead of doing perfect halves, we're going to do like 70-30, 60-40. I always say those two, and then I always end up doing about 65-35. So that's the goal. Now, it might be a little hard to communicate this to you guys, so I'll do my best, but we just cut that into eighths, and the eighths are asymmetrical, right? So I'm going to take the longer section, the 60%, 65% section. It just has a little bit of an uneven edge to it, and I'm going to put that into this dubbing loop. Now, inside this dubbing loop, I don't want it all perfectly 50-50. Closest to the hook shank, I'm going to make it slightly uneven, and closest to me, it's going to be 50-50. When I come in with my shorter section here, I'm going to put that in, trap that down. I'm going to make those, the new base, uneven, and then closest to me, even. And so what you're doing is you're taking long fibers, uneven, moving to even, short fibers, uneven, moving to even. And that's how you build this kind of perfect little teardrop head that's going to make a nice viscous cone right at the eye you're flying. I'm actually going to pinch some of these fibers out just because I think it's a little too dense. And we're going to crowd the hook eye if I'm not careful. You don't need a lot for this head to be absolutely pristine for fishing. But I just spin this up nice and slow. And when you put that dubbing wax in there, these fibers hold in a dubbing loop so absolutely phenomenally well. It's absolutely, I keep saying absolutely. I'm not trying to sell you guys this stuff. It's just, I mean, the head is freaking durable is what I'm trying to get at. Just a little bit of dubbing wax, spin that up nice and slow. For thread, I'm actually using a 140 power thread. So if you spin this up too tight, it'll break your thread. So just don't get carried away here, but get some good tension on that. You can always come in, pull on these fibers. If they're trapped down, they're trapped down, you're good to go. If they shift a little bit, give it a few more turns here. But what I like to do to make this workable is I'm going to come in with some water, and I'm going to make this into a nice clean hackle so that we can use touching wraps to build this forward, meaning that the core of the material basically is going to touch itself every time you turn it. It's going to be super dense. That way we get this ultra bulky head. And the water's going to help with some durability and saturate that thread and really add durability. The statement was going nowhere. So I'm just going to preen this back, and I like to walk it forward. And you don't need a true rotary for this. I'm just lazy and OCD at the same time, so I find this helps me. But I'm just going to preen and walk all the way up to hopefully just shy of the hook eye. You can kind of see where my thread is short of the hook eye there. I left just a little bit of room up here for this thread head for all of our eyes in Peacock. And then once this is done, you're going to trap a few fibers, but it shouldn't be too bad. I'm going to come in and hit that with a comb, make sure this dubbing loop is tied down nice and secure before I do that, so I don't loosen that up and pick that out, because that would be horrible to waste this beautiful fiber. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to leave this in the vise for trimming. And basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of, you'll see me pull up on this head, and really I'm looking for kind of like random fibers that are out of place as I kind of just bullet this entire head. And so I'm just going to, almost like trimming a bulkhead. That's basically what we're imitating. We're imitating, this is like a synthetic bulkhead. If you're familiar with any of Bob Popovich's work, any of his bulkheads, basically a bucktail deceiver tied with reversed bucktail butts for a head. And you can do it with multiple materials, kind of just adding bulk to the head, but that's all we're doing is imitating that. I like to do the bottom a little bit flatter, the top a little bit round. That flat bottom just helps that hook kind of keel and orient, and a flat bottom is going to displace more water, and you're going to want, the more material you have on top of the hook, the more that it's going to ride correctly. Just a general rule of thumb. But then I'm just going to pull out this stuff, make it nice, uneven, bullet. Now that probably would have fished just fine. I'm not trimming any of that, but you can see I reduced it significantly and have this nice, a little bit more appropriate to the length of the fly, just how much bulk that has. It's like a perfect minnow, fathead, juvenile, sucker, any of that type of stuff. So I like to put my eyes on, and this is Hareline's real fake jungle cock eyes. And they have a whole bunch of different colors. These are the smaller size. You can see they have 2 sizes in a pack. And what I like to do is I like to reverse tie these. I don't know why. I do, for durability. It makes sense in my head that it'd be more durable, whether or not it is. I don't really know. I didn't test it, but I like reverse tying these. And so I'm just going to find my length, and then I'm going to match them. And what happens is, because these are, obviously they have a flat edge to them, and we're going to put them right on the sides to imitate eye spots, it'll actually build kind of like a little flat thread dam on top, and it makes attaching the peacock really, really convenient. So I'm just going to pin that down, wrap right up to the hook eye, put some good tension on that, and reverse that material. So that's tied in twice, and I'm 100% confident that's not going anywhere, especially once we throw a dab of glue on our whip finish at the end. It also gives you a little opportunity to make sure that the eyes are set correctly on the fly, which I like them pretty much in line. You can shift them up or down if you have a preference, but I don't think it matters that much. Come in, throw in a little half hitch so that our pinch wrap on the Peacock won't loosen any of that. And now we have this really nice dense head with some eye spots. So when you come in with your Peacock Herl, this is another Hareline strung Peacock Herl, 5 to 7 inches. I like quite a bit of fibers, and this is going to get us our counter shading. This stuff reflects a ton of light, and just it looks super fishy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we do about 10 fibers is really the kind of perfect density. Any more than that's probably not really going to benefit you, and any less than that, and it'll be a little too thin and wispy. But I just find my length, and I like it to bleed into the tail just proportionally. You can kind of see where the Foxy brush ends right about here, and that's about like the perfect length. And these are all tapered. They're not the same length at all. And so what we're going to do is just cut that flush, spin this around in my hand, and then again I like to reverse tie this stuff. It's a little bit technical right up at that hook eye, but it allows me, when I get right here, to kind of preen this off to the side a little bit, fold that back bulleted, and I can get a nice little wide. I can control how wide it is over the back of that fly because I did that. And so instead of having like 10 fibers perfectly on top of each other right on top, now they're distributed over the entire back of that fly, and it gives it a perfect kind of counter shading, even though they're all kind of loose individual fibers. And I'm going to half hitch before I whip finish just to keep everything under tension. And now you can see we have that big, nice, kind of perfectly clean thread head going back onto that fly. Now the Peacock is a little crazy, but what you can do to contour the body, you take your scissors, and for all of you people who love Christmas and wrapping gifts, you can just come in and you're going to do ribbon curls basically on your Peacock, and that'll get the Peacock, it'll allow it to contour the body. And just be careful that you don't pull too crazy hard on it, because you can break the stuff if your scissors aren't super sharp, and you just want to add a nice little curl. If you don't have, you should have scissors if you're tying flies, but if you don't, you can use your fingernails actually. Just kind of grab one of those fibers and like draw it up and over. But that is the Fuzz Jr. I'm gonna come in. I like the brushable Zap-A-Gap. It's probably my favorite of all the glues. You could come in with UV resin if you want, but I don't know why you would if you have a $2 bottle of Zap-A-Gap laying around. But that gives you a nice, clean, perfect head. And that's the Fuzz Jr. Little things about fishing it. Maybe I'll back this up so you guys can see my face. It's been a while. I don't have a beard or anything. That'd be cool. Maybe I should work on that. But it's like a super prime 5-weight bug. Like I fish it on a 6 with a full sinking line, and it's just, it is, if you had, if you were gonna fish any fishery that you've never fished before for trout or smallmouth bass, this and a Jerk Jr. are the only two things I would throw. Well, that's all. I'd throw hollow points and super jerks and probably hot fuzzes and other stuff, but for starting out with a 6-weight, just getting into streamers, like this is so money. It's so money. It's money. So that's the Fuzz Jr. Check it out. If you want to add some weight, you can easily put like 4 or 5 wraps of lead on the hook shank. It'll just slip it under. The head, the strung fuzzy fiber, doesn't absorb any water. And it's, I don't know how this, it's like, it's stiff and bulky and pushes water, but it's not so tight that it traps water. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but when you use synthetics, they don't absorb water, meaning the physical fiber takes in that water, swells, and then it has that increased mass from the water weight, right? So it's heavy to cast. But the synthetics don't do that. But what they do is, if you have a really tight woven synthetic, the water fibers will get trapped within here, and basically it's like the water tension doesn't allow it to fall out, and so you have to do a roll cast, and you'll see all the water shoots out and it sheds, right? That's kind of like if you look at like Game Changers, they trap water, one roll cast, it all falls out, and then they're castable, right? And so this head, it doesn't do that, but it's still bulky. So it's like as soon as you take it out of the water, it's freaking light as a feather, and you're like boom, shoot, and it's just back, forward, slip, slip. And so it's a super easy casting fly. Counter shaded, grizzly, just dirty little bug, hot spots, bulky head that it catches every current. It's crazy. It's a really slick fly. So that's what I got for you. Number 1 Ahrex trout predator, little faux bucktail, anti-foul guard, ostrich tail, so swimmy. So thanks for watching. Check it out. Give it a tie it up, fish it, stick a whole bunch of fish on it, I don't know, and pick up some of that strung fuzzy fiber, because it's going to come in handy for like the next 4 tutorials. I guess 3. Well, it depends on if I do a micro seasoned geezer, because I had somebody ask, so that one's in the works. So the next 4 tutorials, strung fuzzy fiber. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.